Good morning. I'll call to order the Board of Directors special meeting workshop for Wednesday, August 6th, 2025. May I have a roll call, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Here.
Director Duff,
Present.
Director Martin,
Present.
Vice President Griffith,
Present.
and President Sewell.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Thank you. Seeing that all five directors are present, we'll skip item 3. Item 4, public input. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the board on matters within the board's jurisdiction. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less. State law prohibits the board from discussing or taking action on any item not listed on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public wishing to address the board today?
President Sewell, not online.
And it doesn't look like it in person. So we'll move on to our discussion items. Item 5, long-range financial plan. General Manager.
Thank you, President Sewell, members of the board. Wanted to remind everyone this is a workshop, so it's going to be completely informal. So please interrupt at any time. But first, I'd turn over AGM Champion to introduce some of our esteemed colleagues, if you will.
Thank you, General Manager Macy. We do have several of our Clear Committee members here in the audience today, so I wanted to introduce them to all of the board. First, we have Annette. Annette, you want to raise your hand? And we will have some time for the Clear Committee to give some testimony and to kind of give you some background on the meetings and their feelings on it. But right now, I just wanted to give you a name with a face. Maya's coming in right now. She's another one of our Clear Committee members. We've got Thomas in the back. Thomas, you want to raise your hand? Very good. We have Alex. There we go. And Frank Elmore is just walking in the building. Come on in, Frank. And I had a couple more members who were planning to be here that actually one is ill and one had an accident at home. So they couldn't make it today, but they are planning to make it to our other meetings.
Great.
Thank you. So we're today, we just want to give you a high level overview of some of the same materials that we've provided to the Clear Committee. Again, this is a workshop, so it's meant to be interactive, and this is very much a high level overview. We did go into a lot of details with the Clear Committee, and as we'll talk about a little bit later today, they gave us a lot of feedback on what you're going to see. Go ahead. Oh, I'm doing it. Never mind. I'm driving today. So first, we're going to start with our wastewater services and kind of look at some of the information that we provided. First, just an overview of our rates and how those work. We have our single family and our multifamily and our mobile home park rates. As the board is aware, we bill annually for these charges for most of our customers, and these fees do get put onto their property tax rolls. We do have for our non-residential customers, it is based on the demands, the flow and the strength of their flows to our systems. So that does come into play. And we have 24 different customer types. And there's a range depending on if you are like a hairdresser or if you're a laundromat or if you're a different type of non-residential customer, depending on that. And that is something we'll detail out a little bit later as we move forward. I know there's been some talk about what do our rates look like as compared to some of the other Coachella Valley agencies. And you can see here, we're not the highest and we're not the lowest. And we do fall there. If you look at Mission Springs Water District, right there, the annual fee right now is about $601.92. Keep in mind, though, that there is, for those residents who live in the city of Desert Hot Springs, they also pay a city utility users tax on top of this. Some of the assumptions, and these were established when we were doing our financial master plan, and you'll see we have our salary, our benefits, our utilities, and our construction costs. And you can see that there is an escalation of these fees starting in, we've got it from fiscal year 2026 on through fiscal year 2030 in our model. And you can see utilities, we do have them, they slightly dip in fiscal year 2028-29 because we do have our new, we're planning to have our new solar facility online. So it does dip, but as we all know, those fees, especially Edison, have really hit not only our agency, but other agencies very hard on their bottom lines.
I have a quick question real quick. I'm going back to your previous slide. On the comparative
Yes.
on there, do we know the status, if any, of the other jurisdictions, their plans for rate increase on there that may alter this chart completely?
That's a really good question, Director Martin. Yes, I believe that Indio is talking about, they're working on a rate study right now, and they're looking at increasing their rates as well, or adjusting their rates. I won't say increase, they're adjusting their rates. Brian, I think there's been some other talk as well.
I was going to say that from a water perspective, yes, Indio is going to be looking at a rate increase. They've already approved that process. Valley Sanitation District, who is also representing the city of Indio, is also looking at raising their rates. So we don't know exactly. They are still in their infancy of moving forward with their rate discussion right now, but they are raising their rates or looking at that. I am not familiar with CVWD or the city of Coachella or Palm Springs, but we can look into that as we move forward for the next couple of weeks.
Are you later on in your presentation bring up this is annual wastewater fees? Are you gonna bring up the water?
Yes, we're going to detail through all the wastewater information first, and then we'll
Okay.
jump over and talk about water.
Thank
That's
you.
okay.
And while we're on it, just a quick question. You mentioned the city utility tax. Do you know if these other jurisdictions have similar tax?
I believe most cities do. I know the city of Indio does because I pay that bill. I believe most cities do charge a utility users tax.
Okay. And is the Indio, is that comparable to?
I believe it's a little higher.
Thank you.
I can bring that back though the next time, some exacts. We can do some research for the study session.
I have a question that perhaps General Manager Macy could answer. I noticed watching the Coachella Valley Water District's last meeting on the 8th. And I was wondering why their rate is a lot less expensive than everybody else. Now, the only thing I could come up with is that they have a bigger customer base and maybe they getting their more water from the
From the Colorado River.
yes, sir, Colorado River. And they're looking at those rates right now to see what they're going to do there.
Right. And the easy answer to your question is you're exactly right. The size of their agency, this how they can spread their cost around or across almost 500,000 customers versus us having 50,000. They have a little bit more flexibility.
Which is why we're kind of way up there in the top 3 tiers there, huh?
Also,
Well-
also the geology is a little bit different too, isn't it?
So yes, from a water perspective, yes, the geology is very different up here. With the amount of water you can pump out of lower valley areas is a lot, basically 3,000 gallons a minute. For us to do that up here, we'd have to drill 3 wells. So from that water perspective, that's the water side. From the sewer side, again, we go up and down the lift stations and everything else, smaller, putting the costs around smaller areas, things of that nature. So yeah, there's a lot of differences in each of these numbers and each is unique from that perspective.
Thank you.
Okay. So again, we looked at the expenses here. You can see they are escalating in the next 5 years. And we'll go into a little bit more detail on that in a moment. We did, back when we were looking at the long-range financial plan, and when we did our master plans, we did talk about our customer growth and our account growth. We're looking at about a 2.1% annually for all customer classes. This is about the same assumption that we use in the water, so you'll see that same number later. On the flows, we do anticipate an increasing flow from all customer class, and we do have that around 0.1% of an actual projection in wastewater flows due to the conservation numbers as well. So we've taken both of those into account. Again, residential customers are not billed based on their estimated water flows. That is something that we reserve for our commercial customers. Residential customers pay a flat monthly charge regardless of their water consumption. And although they're not billed on flow, the amount of the wastewater contributed by residential customers and returning to the treatment plant, we do estimate as part of our cost of service study. So while they're not being billed that way and our rate structure is not based on that, we do take that into account. And I'm going to turn this over to Brian to talk a little bit about our wastewater CIP projects.
So the slide you see in front of you is a summary, if you will, of the projects that will be moving forward over the next 5 years. You're looking at a total of just under $48 million. A lot of that is, for example, we have M2 coming on currently out to bid. You have $10 million for that. That's grant compensated. Another large cost of this is our administrative building, but also you see a couple of other things on here. You from a perspective of looking into the future, we have $2 million going for a filtration system at the Horton plant. You have D3, which we've talked about recently, almost $3 million. And then we have a placeholder coming out of our master plan, knowing that at some point we're going to have to start replacing some of our old sewers or some of our old infrastructure. So it's a placeholder looking out 2030, 2035. And then, of course, there's another placeholder there as we continue going to the future years. So from that perspective, we do have a very robust capital improvement program for the wastewater side. What that leads us into is really where we spent a lot of time with the Clear Committee and the dashboard. This is from our model from Raftillis. What you see in front of you, and there's a lot of information here, and I'll just try to go through it as quickly as I can. One of the concerns we have in 2025, you see basically January this year, that's what the monthly cost is. Well, continuing down that line, you see if we were to do a rate adjustment, you're looking at 2026, 7% is where we landed, and I'll get into more detail on that. Looking down, you start talking about your cash reserves, what the target is, some of the variance in the target, cash on hand. Arturo, you can step in at any time and talk through any of this information if any questions come up. We have debt coverage ratio. That was very important for a lot of reasons. If we go out and issue more debt, we want to make sure that we meet a debt coverage ratio of 1.2. And then, of course, you have the fund balances in that graph at the bottom right. Getting in a little bit more detail of the specifics of where we are at, looking at cash reserves, things of that nature that go into the model. We have bond proceeds, knowing that to try to soften some of our increases, we are going to have to issue some bond money, if you will. And then it's also showing the proposed grants. You have $8 million in 2026, 2.8 in 27. That is to pay for the M2 project, which we have already secured. While we think we're going to get other grant proceeds, we did not put this in this model. We wanted to have a true representation of what we think the costs are going to be. The Clear Committee landed on a 7% increase across all 5 years. You see across the top a collective rate increase. That's the reason that is there is because when we were going through the model with the Clear Committee, they asked specific questions about, can we increase this year? Can we decrease this year? Can we step it up? Can we do whatever? And that collective rate increase was important because when you start changing certain things, sometimes it changes that number. So from that perspective, it was very helpful in looking at that. The other thing that we focused on was the fund balance. The issue with this slide here is depending on where we wanted to be with our reserves. Now, the black line is the reserve target. In reality, that probably should be about $5 or $6 million higher because the way the Raftillis was looking at this is this is what the reserve policy is, both on cash on hand as well as for future improvements. The issue is they started it almost from scratch, starting in 2025 versus when we actually did the policy. So this line, while it's accurate for its building up, it's building off of 2025. The Clear Committee looked at this and was concerned with if something happens to your system, how much cash do you need on hand to do an improvement? We have 2 wastewater treatment facilities, so if we lose one, we could probably use the other. But what we don't have is the Dos Pampas lift station. If something happened to that, we'd have to rebuild that one almost immediately. Knowing that the Amazon just built a similar lift station to what we have at Dos Pampas for about $10 million, we wanted to make sure we had $10 million on hand in case something ever happened to the Dos Pampas lift station. So when we were looking at these and looking at the reserve targets, we sort of looked at it a little bit differently in the Clear Committee, that they wanted to make sure we had cash on hand any emergencies we had. If we do have a large earthquake, how do we handle some of that? So while the reserve target is there, we may want to talk about that from a policy perspective moving forward to try to elevate that a little bit. But it seemed to made sense to us as we were going through the process that we wanted to have enough money to fix critical infrastructure. So, oops, sorry, I'm going on there. So going back to this particular slide, you see our cash reserves, you see the percentages that we're looking at, seeing how we're bond proceeds, grant funding. Again, spending a lot of time on this, almost, gosh, full hour, if you will, in each of our meetings with the CLEAR committee. That's where we ended up. What I'd like to do is get some feedback on the board of how you would like to see it as we move forward in the study session or again, when we have our board meeting on Monday. So in reality, if there's any questions or any concerns, please let us know, or we can move forward. No questions? Okay.
I think just off the top, I don't know if it's appropriate to add a second line. I know that our policy is that black line that you showed, but it just seems like if you didn't just hear what you said, it looks like we have a lot of extra money. And I don't think we want people to think we have a lot of extra money when it's really our ideal reserve versus,
I'm going to put
I mean,
Arturo on the spot here because when he saw this, he'd made a comment. And I forget what number he wanted to start this number with to elevate the line, but
It actually starts at 30 million. That's a cumulative since 1995 when the policy was in play started. That line represents the amount that we need each year to meet that policy. So in effect, we are going to meet it. However, the total number that we need to look at is at 30 million. But as you see, 2027, it goes down to 18 million. So we're already under that amount that is required based on our policy. Which is one of the reasons I want to also look at our policies to make sure that it's in line with industry standards and that it does meet the district's needs. So that number should be at that starting point at that $29.4 million.
I have a question. So that policy went into effect 1995,
85.
85, and we haven't adjusted for inflation.
So what that policy did is it states based on our fixed assets that we spend every year and the depreciation. The depreciation means that we've been using those assets. So 50% is allocated to the reserve, which means 50% of using those assets. By the time we get to a couple of years, they're been used up completely. So then we can have that money to replace them. So that's what that policy does. So every year that we spend, it's based on the actual expenditures, which includes the CPI increases on those assets as well. So it's all being taken into consideration as we move towards every single year.
Okay, thank you.
Is this, these numbers here based on an increase or no increase?
these are actually based on the increase.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the chart's really deceiving because from my perspective, if I look at this, I just think, well, gosh, there's tons of money there. Why do you need an increase? Because according to this, what's that? About 20 million over what you need. And so the average person's going to look at that and say, well, you guys are ripping us off. I think if there is an actual balance that we need, then we should be accurate about it. Because otherwise this is kind of deceiving to me.
Can I piggyback on that comment? You said that the policy has us at the 29.4.
Correct.
And that's where the reserve line should be. So when we have this come back, I would like that reserve line there.
Yeah.
Okay, because this doesn't make any sense to start in 2025 at this $5 million. That won't cover 1/3 if an earthquake or another Hillary hits.
Well, and it's really what I forget the last slide. It's not even 5.
Right.
2.9.
Let's remove that line. We can't present that graph like that. It's false.
And to Raftella's defense, not that I'm defending it, basically what they were trying to make sure is that the district's meeting those needs based on our expenditures and based on that depreciation amount. So that's what they were trying to make sure that we were getting back at. That line represents the amount that we have to collect every year to meet that reserve policy. However, when you look at 2029, for example, $18 million on reserve, and we have a catastrophic event of $10 million, we're already using more than half of that amount. So that's a very good question that you're asking, that we definitely need to come back with that extra line that shows this is where it's supposed to be based on the accumulated amount that we have that policy on.
Get labeled as minimum expenditure amount.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
And then the reserve
And then the
target
reserve
above.
line, make a red line as the reserve line, and then and it's not reserve target, it's annual deposit, mandatory deposit, basically. So yeah, thank you for correcting that.
I
When
think,
I,
I think what I haven't seen in here is some examples of what these emergencies could be. Listing what we spent on the Hillary repairs, even though some of that we did get back. Anyone pays attention knows FEMA is gone. So I think that it's important that when we're talking about these things, we talk about real life examples of what has happened and what the costs are, what the current costs are. And then if you look at what they might be 5 years from now, given tariffs and the cost of everything. So I think that's important across of not just this is the minimum amount we need to spend each year, but this is why we need this extra money so that people understand that if we do have an event, this is what these cost. So we need to make sure we have that money, because we can't, which we all know from our trips to DC, we cannot rely on any federal funding for anything at this point.
Which
I,
actually,
go ahead.
Sorry.
I just wanted to comment on the comment that Vice President Griffith made there. It looks like, $20 million. It looks like that's too much. When I was first, 2.5 years ago, first got here, that I saw that $20 million there in the reserve, and I thought to myself, wow, must be overcharging or something here. But that isn't the case. Now I know better, but you're absolutely right. That's the appearance that it does give. It's exactly what I thought but now I know better. We have to have that money in the reserves in case something happens. And if something happens and we don't have the money, how are you going to get your water?
And I have a question, because I think that the perception on the part of the public is very important. And I am not opposed to a rate increase. I am struggling with a 5-year rate increase. But again, the perception is going to be, and that's why I think it's important to get a comparative with other water districts in the Coachella Valley and what they're charging, what they're proposing to charge. Because I can see the frustration that people would have when they say, I'm paying more for water than the millionaires who live across the freeway. And that's a perception that we have to address. And I'm very concerned about that.
What? Okay.
if we could, before we leave wastewater, I do have one more question. Could we talk about the $8 million grant money that you show? What is that grant money that you're referring to? Is that what we were already awarded, or is that what we're hoping?
No, that's
Good.
part of the $68 million
So that's
grant
what
that we
means
have,
it
and
takes-
that's M2. Yes.
Okay.
That's the collection system for the M2 area.
I think, and the 2.8 is the same, or
Yes.
the remainder
Yes.
of
We're
that?
not, so being where we are right now in that project, it is going to extend into 27. So we split that.
I just wanted to, again, piggybacking off of the other comments, it's important that our public understand that we have fought very difficultly lately to achieve money that was promised to us, Army Corps of Engineer money, et cetera, and that has been pulled. So we can't count on any help from the federal government or FEMA or potentially the state if they're having to take care of everyone else. So I want to make sure that that is somehow very clearly noted, that this grant money that we are expecting was awarded, like put the award date or something,
Okay.
so that it's extremely clear that we're not anticipating getting that in addition, that it's already awarded money that the state has. If we could clarify that.
We'll do.
Thank you.
And Vice President Griffith, to your credit, if you look at our capital expenditures over the last 5 years, we've been spending primarily to keep everything running as it should, without going into any of the projects that to build infrastructure, to build development. So to your point, you can look at that we're spending roughly $5 million a year just to keep the district running through those on events that happen that we didn't plan for. So if you look at that on top of the monies that we want to spend to build the district and to keep the water running for our customers and bill infrastructure, that's what we're talking about, that increase in those funds for capital projects.
And I want to say a couple things. One, in terms of the CIP, and I see that further down we're talking about pipe replacement. DWA is struggling with their pipes. They're very old. They have tons of leaks. They're in their meeting yesterday. I forget, like 4,000 or 5,000 leaks over the past 10 years, and they are increasing the rate, hopefully, of their pipe replacement from 2 miles a year to 3 miles a year, and they have 63 miles to replace. So I think it's important we keep in mind that we want to stay ahead of that game, because not recently, but I can remember going to some of their meetings and you consistently saw major leaks, 15, 20 leaks on one major pipeline. And that's not something that we want to deal with. So I think it's important we keep all of that stuff in mind and learn from the things that they're struggling with down there, that we stay ahead of that so it doesn't catch us.
And one last thing, just kind of overall, I know it would probably be beneficial for the water side too. That slide showing extending out to 2030, can we include one that would not show a rate increase? Just because I think everyone in this room, it's a matter of how much do we need to increase, but our general customer, it'd be nice to show them that it is needed, that we can't, right, we can't stay.
Would you like that on the same graph?
Whatever's easier, even a separate graph that just shows
Well,
current rates.
So what we'll do is the dashboard, basically this, we will bring this back with the zero across the board, and you'll see what happens to so from this perspective, the debt coverage ratio, the fund balance, will change the fund balance. We'll move the line up to where it should be. And then this particular slide will do the same thing, but we'll put zero, and you'll see very quickly how that reserve balance goes to the other side. Not only just does it stay below,
Right.
will stay below the line, but it actually goes to zero very quickly. So we can do that.
Thank you.
Is there any other 0, 7%? Is there any other percentage you'd like to see next week?
I know when we first started talking, we were saying possibly 6 and 8.
Okay.
Now we're 7 and 9. Can we just see 6 and 8
Sure
just
can.
as a?
We'll do that too. Yeah. We'll do that as well.
Thank
Okay. Okay, so that gives us very good direction from that perspective. Now we'll go to the water. As you know, we have a 2-tier volumetric rate structure, and then we have a base rate. Currently, our current and proposed rates are providing approximately 29% of our fixed revenue recovery and 71% on the variable revenue. I know some of the concerns that we've had in the past about being that much variable, knowing that we're going to have conservation goals and things of that nature. When we started looking at that, we didn't want to necessarily impact some of our low users from that perspective. So we actually kept it at the same, basically base rate, and then the same volumetric rate, and just moving that forward. Our existing water rates right now, both base and fixed, you'll have our meter size and then our monthly charge for each size of meter. These are, I guess, Marion, would you like to, I know you had a couple of key points on this, but these rates were established back in 2012 as part of a 2015 cost of service study. The last time we had a rate increase in both water and sewer was 2020. So from that perspective, one of the comments that we talked about in the CLEAR committee is that if you had $1 in 2020 and you were getting that kind of value, knowing where we've been, inflation, COVID, and everything else, you now need $1.27 to buy that same dollar this time. So from that perspective, we've done very well using the resources that we have, but we are behind, if you will, just 27% just looking at the CPI.
Your mic.
Sorry, we aren't increasing those because,
So just our last rate increase is 2020. We never came to the board from that perspective and looked at that. We are now, of course. Now, the interesting thing is when we were talking to the Clear Committee, one of the things they looked at, they said, why aren't you raising them every single year? Why don't you look at that? So that's one of the things that we looked at of when we come 2030, do we need to continue a rate increase of some sort? If you talk about the Fed, right now they're talking about it and they want to keep the CPI around 2%. So that may be something that we look for it. And we did go through a couple of scenarios looking at 2% out in the future. But right now we wanted to focus on making sure that we're basically making up for the 27% that we've lost. And then what do we need to try to maintain some of our debt coverage ratios and some of the reserves? So we are going to show, we can show both of those. Okay.
You're doing such a great job. This is actually just showing a little bit more detail, what those different tiers look like and the cost for those tiers. We have a 2-tier system. So on the residential side, 0 to 13 CCF. On the volumetric side, that's 229. Then you'll see tier 2 does go up. Our cost to serve those customers does increase. And as when you see your cost of service study, you'll see we've got things like conservation methods that, we really target those customers who are in tier 2, whether it be because they have a leak and they need some assistance on figuring out where that leak is, or if they just, in general, how do they conserve water? And so really that tier 2 customer, also our irrigation customers, that's more of a cost to the district because we have to really work with those customers to get them down into that tier 1 area. Here, I'm sorry.
I'm really sorry. Can we go back to that slide?
Yeah, no problem.
Can you explain why the multifamily residential is less than the single family?
So remember, this is based on our 2015 financial master plan and 2015 cost of service study. So it was based on the way those customers were using their water at that time. And something that we'll talk a little bit about, one of the things that we discovered when we went through this cost of service study is that back at that time, multifamily residential usage was actually lower than a single family residential usage. That has changed. And that's going to really, you're going to see that when you actually start seeing the actual rates. The usage pattern has really changed. And what we really attribute to it, we believe to, is that we've had several droughts in the past. Customers in the single family residence, they typically have some sort of outdoor water usage. People who are in the multifamily residential, they don't have control over that. So what we're seeing now is that our multifamily residential usage is actually higher now than our single family residential usage. So you're going to see some shifting of these costs when we actually start looking at our rates going forward. And really, we believe that's probably drought driven because they started single family residents, they were able to reduce. And if they turned off their water and they let their grass die, they're probably not replanting that grass just because the drought's over.
And the other thing that we're going to be doing moving forward, again, in talking some of our Clear Committee, we realized that the multifamily includes duplexes, buildings of 4, buildings of 8, as well as mobile home parks. So from that perspective, it's a really wide selection, if you will, of multifamily residential. Knowing that the state is going to be asking us to conserve across the board, we are going to be breaking these classifications down. And at that particular time, then we'll look at how to better define multifamily. Because right now, why it's fair based on that class, we do see that there may be some inequities within that class.
And also ADUs.
Correct. That's the other thing
That's
too.
what I was trying to figure out, where they were placing in all the ADUs and the push for ADUs. Are they going to automatically change a single family resident to a multifamily?
That is something.
And then they have yards. So
Yep. That's exactly something that we have to start looking at a little bit differently. And that's one of the things that's not necessarily contemplated in this. We don't have a lot of EDUs, but we expect to have some in the future. So we do need to look at our rate classes and working with other agencies as well to make sure that we're consistent with the industry. But that is something that does not necessarily show.
With that, but thank you.
know that this was one slide that Director Martin was very interested to make sure we get this. This is the rate comparison for the other agencies. You mentioned across the freeway, you can see Desert Water Agency's the third bar chart there versus ours were a lot lower than Desert Water Agency. They recently did a rate increase about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years ago. And then we just threw in Joshua Basin just for another example there. Indio falls somewhere in between Coachella and Mission Springs currently, but again, as Brian mentioned, they are looking at their rates now. But a lot of this is driven by the geology and how is it that how do we have to move that water? It costs energy to move that water across the different pressure zones, and our system is very, very different than say a CVWD. They have a large customer base. They can move things. They can spread administrative costs out that we don't necessarily have.
A question I have is the other jurisdictions in the Coachella Valley are not listed here as for the comparison. And I understand that thing about the geology and that type of stuff, but comparing us to high desert and 29 Palms and everything, mainly because I think they have a similar geology issues, and that's why it's a legitimate comparison. But from the community perception, we're just cherry picking the agencies that are paying more for water than we are. And I don't know if that's what the typical customer is going to do. He's going to look at it and say, they're paying less for water than I am. I don't understand. And they're talking about Indio. They're talking about some of the other Bermuda Dunes. I don't know. That's a private.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that concerns me of not having the other jurisdictions within the Coachella Valley mentioned in this chart.
When we bring this back to during our study session, we'll add Indio in here as well.
Right.
And that way you'll see it.
Yeah, the city of it.
And also if you can find out any plans for rate increase from their perspective, because all this might be a moot point from my view, is if they're all skyrocketing their rate is going to be a lot higher than ours, if that's the case. So I think it's important to have that comparison available.
Yes, I agree, because when you look at Joshua Basin and the High Desert Water District, how many feet down do they have to drill to get water? And how difficult is it to get water for them? So I agree. I think we need to stick with the districts that are down here in the lower basin.
We will definitely add the city of Coachella and the city of Indio's water system on here.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Again, just to point out what seems to be an issue to me is the base rate. And if you look at those other industries, even CVWD was equal base rate to water consumption rates. Our base rate is very low in comparison to those that we are comparing to. So it draws my attention to that issue once again. That's just my comment. Thank you.
Okay. The assumptions very similar again to the wastewater. You can see utilities increasing and then decreasing with our solar facility coming online. Benefits, salary, general, it's all the same as we saw before. Here you can actually see though the number of water meters, and this goes back to what we adopted in our water master plan and the increase in there based on that. And then you can also see our actual and projected water use. This also takes into consideration conservation as a way of life. You know, we do anticipate about a 1% decrease of consumption based on that. So that is being taken into consideration when you look at these numbers. And then I'm going to ask Brian to talk about our CIPs.
So the water system is a lot more complex than our sewer system. Knowing that gravity goes downhill, most of our sewers just flow to our 2 treatment facilities, but our water side, we have to pump up the mountains, if you will. So you'll see a lot more costs associated with our water system. You do see a placeholder going back to 2020, item 11, where you have a 2000 or 2020 CIP pipeline replacement for emergency repairs. We have that spaced out. You'll also see other projects, well 42, for example. Hopefully, we're going to complete that in 2026. And then going down some of the other CIP projects, you have terrace reservoirs 1, 2, and 3. I'll get into more detail on some of those. And then you have emergency backup generators. We have well 35, well 34, and then the intertie between those two. Valve machines, energy conservation plan is basically our solar project, and then other costs associated with that. Continuing with other projects, one of the things talking about leaks and trying to plan for the future, line 27, water line replacement and rear yard easements. You see, basically, we're going to start designing in 2028, and then we start doing construction and basically allocated 1.2 million for next couple of years going through 2030. And then that continues until we complete all of those projects. In addition to that, you'll see the new administrative building, and then the future CIPs is a lot of other projects that are just lined up. Unlike the sanitary side, where we're basically looking at 47 million, the water system's almost 65 million, so significantly higher.
Can you go to the previous screen? What is, I lost it, but it's in here. Pearson Boulevard Slurry Seal Project. Wouldn't that not be a city thing?
Eric, you want to?
Why are we sealing the street?
The title is basically going back to a county project. That's the title of the county project, but we have to change, we have to move our valves, we have to do other things. So that's the title, that's the county's title, not ours. So we're not,
but
we're
what are
not,
we doing?
we're not.
Okay, we're raising the facilities.
So, so if you go, so when, like, for
You
example,
have to raise a manhole.
raising manholes, raising valve boxes, those types of things, that's all part of that. And we have to go back and do that after they do any type of road enhancements. So yes, that is a Riverside County project. Actually, if you go below it, you'll see another resurfacing project.
I saw that Mountain View.
Yeah. So those
Is
are
Mountain View done?
There's a county ordinance that requires us to repave to slurry seal, which is a lower cost alternative to actually paving it.
no. We're not,
No,
no, this is
You're talking about-
this is simply taking the valve covers and moving that,
raising them.
those types of things. Danny, you want to speak a bit more? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
So, as Brian mentioned, as General Manager mentioned, the names in there are the names of the county projects. So the county has a street improvement project, whether they widen, they raise, or they do whatever improvements. So County Ordinance 499 requires any utility like us to raise our facilities, or we're responsible for abandoning, relocation. In this case, it's strictly our facilities raising the surface. So we don't do them. We typically either get a bid number and we actually budget for it, or sometimes we actually get our own contract and we don't utilize it. That's essentially what this is they're coming through doing projects and we're raising either our water facilities or raising our sewer facilities through the finished product.
But wasn't Mountain View already done?
There's portions of Mountain View that are done, and then there's other areas that
There's
are
more
affected.
going to be done? Okay.
So County Ordinance 499 is one of the things. So that's one of the, I'll say it publicly, it's one of the great relationships that we have with the city. The city of Desert Hot Springs, rather, and it's one of the things that they actually work into their project costs or raising our facilities. And why they don't have to, they don't have anything that covers that. So I want to say that the county's always had something in place, and they refer to it as Ordinance 499. It's been that way for the 28 years I've been with the organization. So City of Palm Springs is the same. So it's their right of way. It's our public utility and their public right of way. So they have ordinances that require us to be responsible for the cost to raise our facilities. Or if there were any, in some instances, if there was any conflict, whatever street improvements we had to relocate or adjust ours, it would be at our cost as well. Thank you.
Yes, we did 2 of those projects last year along Mission Lakes Boulevard, as well as at Mission Lakes Boulevard and Little Morongo Road in that area. where they came through, they paved the street, and then we raised and adjusted the manholes and the water valves.
So I think the question that the board has is this, the, the title is misleading. We
Yes.
need to change the title of those, why they are, that's the project, but we need to put in there raising valves or relocating existing water infrastructure or reimbursement to the county in some capacity because it's their project. So we understand that, and we'll change we will modify that title so it's a little bit less confusing.
Sorry, I'm not done.
Good.
Terrace Reservoir 1, 2, and 3. Those are projected costs, I'm assuming.
Correct.
Are we firmly committing to that in that fiscal year? Because I know that we had committed before.
Yes. I'm glad you brought those particular projects up. That was something that we talked about doing as part of our last rate increase. There were several things that were talked about in our last rate increase. Chrome 6, for example, the terrace reservoirs. Those are projects that are going to be now moving forward. Chrome 6 obviously was a MCL that the state imposed and then retracted for a period of time. Now that's coming back. So you'll see that starting to ramp up. And then you see the terrace reservoirs. When we bid that originally, it came in about 3 times what we expected it due to the just early on in COVID. So we postponed that project until after COVID. The reason we've continued to postpone that project is because we hope to get some grant funding for that particular project. So that's why we've postponed it to 2027. When you look at when we go to our assumptions moving forward in the model, we don't show that grant funding in there, but we hope to get that and then offset some of that. So it will be a net savings, but we're not banking on that, if you will. But yes, matter of fact, let me just go to the slide.
Yeah, I don't think we would want to count on any grant money till 2029 if we're lucky.
So if you look, one of the things that you see here, and again, this is the same dashboard we're talking about before. When you look down here at the fund balances, you see it going from 30 million down to basically 11 million very quickly. What that is the money that we didn't spend from our rate increase going back to 2020. And it's specifically because Terrace and the Chrome 6. So we were accumulating those dollars and we just didn't spend that. So those big hits that you see there are the administrative building, Terrace reservoirs, and then the Chrome 6. So we didn't do those improvements, but we have the money and we're going to spend it in the next couple of years to take care of those things.
Real
So,
quick,
go ahead.
where's that black line supposed to be?
Again, 30 million.
Director Duff, your mic, please.
Thank you. I apologize. Based on what you just said, that confuses me because if the target was 31.5 and 29.5 on the wastewater, and the money that we're seeing here was held from the rate increase for those particular projects, then we're below target.
Correct. Correct.
So it actually, it needs to show that's our target, but this money that's in these fund balances are not all just our reserve balance. Is there a way to separate what we have as reserve versus what we have in the rest of these funds?
We can show it that way, yes.
Okay. That might clarify some things for me. And then on the slide that you were showing before where it showed Chromium 6, it showed $0 for 2027. Was that a typo for the Chromium 6?
And to piggyback on that, are we pretty confident on that 6.3? That makes me nervous. For Chrome 6.
So
Sorry.
No,
it was all good.
So what you do not see is the continued enhancements. So what we're looking at here, there's a couple different things, and I'll try to keep it as brief as I possibly can. We have a staggered approach to deal with Chrome 6. Some of that includes rehabbing current wells that we have and not in use, 28 and 30 specifically. So if you go down to, is it not on here?
Not this one. There it is, 28 and 30.
So part of our Chrome 6 compliance, knowing that those 2 wells do not have Chrome 6, that's our first step, if you will. That'll bring on more capacity and allows us to postpone some of our other Chrome 6 issues. So when you're coming back to this particular slide, I believe in 2028, we believe we're going to be doing something at 24, potentially 20, is that 24, 22, and 42? Is that the second phase? Yeah, the tier twos. Yeah, come on up and we are going to be bringing the contract for Chad Seidel and Corona Engineering to you later or
Working on it now.
So yes, we will be able to talk more in detail about that as that part. But yes, we have a compliance plan. We will bring it up with Chad Seidel, but it's going to be a phased approach. So you'll see this in 2028, and I believe in 31, we're talking about 27 and 31.
Yeah, so to clarify, as the easiest part is Chad Seidel has presented several different options and during his what does he refer to as his pathway or his roadway to compliance. So we are looking at a preliminary design for 4 sites. It may actually increase to 5 sites. Recently, we've had a site that is increased due to usage, but it'll be a combination of a consolidated treatment system at wells 27 and 31 that you mentioned. It'll be a treatment system that is likely going to be consolidated at 42, which is not constructed yet, but 42, 24, and 22. So those are some of the things that we're working through, and it'll be ironed out further once we actually get it. But right now, if we were to say treatment, we would be able to do treatment at likely. And one of the things that remind you that Chad Seidel did in Corona Environmental, he did tier 1, 2, and 3. Tier 1 is like our focus. Tier 2 is we better keep them on the radar. And tier 3, we're okay. So tier 2, there was a well that was in tier 2 that was down the road, is now actually going to get pushed into tier 1. So I'll have more for that. But what Brian is actually getting at is this phased approach is trying to make sure that we can keep water in the system, and then understanding is we're looking at wells 28 and 30. And we may be able to do that much faster and still be able to benefit the district and put water in it. We might be able to go ahead and do other things where we can possibly blend. So until we start getting really into the details, that's why it's a phased approach. And what we're trying to do is stay ahead of providing or being able to provide our max day demand and being able to provide our system with the water it needs. So there's a couple of different ways to do it. It's hard to demonstrate that and show you actually as tabulated data.
I guess I just was assuming that we aren't going to do nothing for the chromium 6 and 27. So it seemed like it must have been an accidental leave out, but it looks like it's just elsewhere. Thank you.
That's subject to change.
Mhm.
So thank you. What the board actually graciously approved was over 25 million for the entire program. So what we're trying to do is best present it is when it's going to happen. It's likely going to happen in a 5-year window. It may change from year to year as we get there. As one of the things that we've always talked about is we can't control groundwater. And I don't mean that sarcastically, but from month to month and year to year, things change. And so sometimes it drives us to make changes as well.
So in expanding on that, you see 35 being equipped. So that is really a part of the Chrome 6 solution, if you will, because that well should not have very much Chrome 6.
Less than 2.
Less than 2. And then then you have 28 and 30 coming online. So that's really 3 wells that we don't have now coming on that will provide us with additional capacity in the system. And we believe that, and then that will allow us to then So we are spending money on Chrome 6, but it's just not right now in the treatment phase, if you will, while we're doing the engineering for
Yeah,
it.
the strategy that allow us to prolong spending the Chrome 6 to 2027 was what Brian's explaining. In 2027, we're actually going to build chromium treatment. We're hoping that we can go that far.
And I think that's a good point. Right. So when we start talking about the engineering, doing the preliminary engineering report, that may go from 28 to 27 from a year perspective.
As Brian likes to have the conversations, glass half full. Sometimes I struggle with that. Not that I'm negative, I'm practical in a sense. Yeah.
Do you have a
And Meyer.
Oh.
Yep. Mine's on 13, 14, and 15, so done with this. Emergency backup generators. Didn't we spend like $1 million for 2 portable generators a year and a half ago? And why do we need, are these, I'm assuming are going to be, well, I can't assume that because you have well 30s or 27 and 31 with the same generator. So what, explain please what's going on there?
Certainly. Great question. So yes, we did spend money on portables. So we do need portables. All of So one of the bigger things is it's not really a great idea to come in and put permanent generators at a lot of sites. There's been a lot of discussion with other agencies that, oh, we've got 60 generators. Well, that's fantastic. But when AQMD makes changes and those generators have to be phased out, you have 60 generators to replace. So for us, we've always maintained portable generators, and those are the 3 that you're referring to. And it was actually just south of $600,000 is what we purchased those 3 for. A study that we prepared in-house was to provide permanent generation. That is what the Division of Drinking Water, State Water Resources Control Board would like us to see. In fact, during each of our sanitary surveys, which is conducted every 3 years, they asked us, what is your ability to provide backup generation? So they would like to see permanent water or permanent power, such like you see here next door or at our wastewater plants or our lift stations. So what we did is we said, what would we need permanent generation from? 2731 is on the same fence in the same fenced area. So the generator there is sized large enough to run both those wells, staggered start. I won't get into the details. And then the other 2 sites will also have individual generators. And the idea in our when we prepared the report is we can get the water out of the ground from those sources, then we can essentially get them into different, then we can roam or rove our portable generators to move the water everywhere else. So once they get to certain locations, we've heard us talk about gravity, we can gravity to other areas, and where we need them in other areas, we can put our portable generators and we can actually move those from booster stations. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to put permanent infrastructure in. One thing I'll note on this is Will Witten has also been active in getting I'm going to say FEMA and CalOES money, but without the added commentary. So we're waiting. It's been well received, and we're still working on the application, similar to what we talked about earlier with the Terrace Reservoir project. We'll have to wait and see what happens on the end of that. So, but I don't believe, as Brian and Arturo alluded to earlier, it doesn't reflect any grant monies in those costs. So, but those are the reasons why we only are putting generators in those locations. It makes sense.
Yes, it does. I remember, you probably remember better than I do in the old days where you had it all mapped out as to where the wells were on people's private property in case something went down and go get the water and deliver it to the whoever. And so this is a lot better idea.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that we can talk about. I know this is a board workshop, so I'm open to whatever, but as far as keeping it to the subject, we've got a lot of different ways to move water. But one of the things that we're also going to be looking at in the future is the requirement to have generated power on our sites or the ability. So and it's that balance. Like I said, with AQMD coming in every time we turn around, we can't even use our equipment in California. We can't even sell it in California. In some cases, we can't even sell it in the United States. We've been forced to sell it to Mexico because they're still able to take it. But so that's one of the reasons why we for one, cost is why we don't have 25, 30 different generators sitting there, is because eventually 25, 30 generators will need to be replaced. So
Okay, thank you. It just seems justifiable then.
and one added item to that is as emergency response plan, we've got agreements and gentlemen's agreements in some cases, but we've got first dib at generators at supply houses or in places that rent equipment. So we've also put that in place. So if we need to augment that, we've got that opportunity. And the last thing I'll say is we've mentioned it several times, Cal Warren and Ernie, those are all mutual aid things that I've brought to the board as far as to make sure we can participate. So we're able to reach out to other agencies and partners, and we have taken advantage of that and an opportunity, and others have done it with us as well. So it's a good program. So for now, it's a good balance, and it keeps us from having to have 10 or 15 of them up there and on that spreadsheet.
Thank you, Mr. Friend.
And not to belabor the projects, but if you can go to the next page, I have a question. Yeah, okay. M2 water line replacement in 2027. Are we not doing that in conjunction with the septic to sewer?
We are.
And
Why is it staggered?
yeah, why is it out there?
So if you recall, the M2 sewer was 26 and 27, and it was basically flipped 8 million, 2 million. The sewer goes in first, the water goes in after. So
That'll be 27.
So yeah, by the
Okay.
time it's in place, then the water will come after. The
Are
sewer,
we gonna have to pave the street twice?
no, that is not our intent.
Okay.
In a perfect world, they'd be able to do one, then come back and do the other and do it at a closer clip, but we don't want to dictate means and methods as part of the contractor. So we're going to work with the contractor to try to minimize any disruption, and that would be the perfect situation where we would do something like that. So again, as a placeholder, this is what seemed conceivable, but until we get the contractor selected, we start getting a schedule, then there's going to be a whole list of outreach and things of that nature of how we're going to do that, how we're going to keep driveways open and all the other things. So from that perspective, look at these almost as a placeholder.
Okay.
That $10 million and this $4 million will move between 26 and 27 in some capacity.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So going back to the dashboard again, I think we've touched on a lot of these different scenarios, and we're going to clean this up to respond to those, move the black line, do other things of that nature. In more detail, just panning into where we are with a monthly cost now. This is based on 13 CFS and a single family home. You see how the 9% over a 5-year period increases to just under $67 a month.
And just trying to remember, that's still lower than desert water.
Yes, that is
Their current.
This is that cost is an average of residential users, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Going back
Good. I'm
to,
glad that's in there. That's important.
yeah, so it's basically 75. We're at 67. So we would still be under Desert Water Agency from that perspective. And we'll add Indio and the city of Coachella to that. So continuing.
And it's a shame that they aren't comparing how many golf courses are on that side of the freeway where they're compared to, we have one, Mission Lakes, and I think there's 20 or 30, something like that, golf courses on the other side of the freeway, but that's not counted in residential use. So
Correct.
that's still a lot of water. Yeah.
So from a community engagement standpoint, I wanted to really stress that this is an ongoing process. We've just scratched the surface from a community engagement standpoint by assembling the CLEAR committee, coming here today to the workshop to start discussing this. But as you can see, as we move forward towards implementation, which would be February or March of 2026, there are several steps for engagement. And it starts with our CLEAR committee, who's actually here. Several of the members are here today. We had meetings back in July, if you'll remember, on July 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th. And we really spent a lot of time with our members going through all of this information in detail, using the model real time and letting them actually see what the different scenarios might look like. We talked at our last meeting about the member backgrounds. We had a very diverse group of individuals with some have expertise in finance. We have some that are in the public sector. We have some that were in utilities, very, very diverse backgrounds. One of the things I wanted to talk a little bit about was, this is not just about rate making. We also wanted to make sure that we touched on the engagement side of things. And so each day we actually had an engagement question that we posed to the members. The first day was, just getting their information on their background. So we had a good baseline. The second meeting, we talked about what did they find that was interesting about MSWD from the first meeting. And, we had a lot of different comments, and you can see them in your recaps. But one of the real interesting ones that I found on the July 15th meeting was someone said, our tap water is safe to drink. And we had a long discussion about the safety of our tap water and the importance of that. And that is an important messaging point that, it's good for those of us in the public affairs office to hear that, because that's a reminder to us that that's something that we need to make sure that we're talking to our community about. Then when we moved on into the next two meetings, the July 22nd and the 29th, on the 22nd, we were looking at the water reserves and the rate revenues and the rate model, but we also talked about the community engagement. We asked them the question, what information would you like to see that coming out of these meetings going to the public? And there was a lot of discussion, everything from the admin building and the need for that and why it's needed. We talked about the idea of conservation and how we illustrate that with our customers and the importance of conservation and how that keeps rates lower for everyone. And then lastly, on the 29th, we actually talked about, well, what is it that you would want the board to know that came out of these meetings? And you can see their individual comments. And I think one of the themes that we've heard from the July 29th meeting was that they didn't want to see our reserves dip low. They wanted us to be prepared for emergencies. General Manager Macy alluded to that earlier, but really they wanted to make sure that we were being fiscally responsible as an agency and making sure that we had the resources and the ability to serve in the future. And that was something that was really important to the members. One of the other things that we touched on, and I'll touch on that in just later in the presentation, is how do we shield increases to our customers who may, our lowest income customers. And again, that was going back and talking about the base rate, and one of the reasons we chose not to adjust that base rate because we didn't want to unfairly impact those customers, but also making sure we have tools in place like the Help to Others program to help them. And I have some ideas for how we can enhance that program as well.
And just real quick, the base rate is going to be adjusted proportionally.
Yes.
We're just not changing that ratio of what it is currently to our commodity costs.
Yes, it will. When you see that 9%, right now, the hypothetical 9%, it is spread out both on the volumetric rate between the classes, have different adjustments based on their usage patterns, and also on that base rate adjusts as well. With that, I did want to, if you guys will indulge me, I wanted to offer up and let some of the CLEAR committee members, if any of them, I'm going to put them on the spot. If any of them, after seeing this meeting, they may not want to come up, but if any of them would like to come up and just talk about their experience with the last 4 meetings, maybe something that they learned that was interesting, something that they want the board to know, something that I have presented this information slightly to the board before, so they were sort of familiar with the committee. But is there anything that came out of these meetings that you would like to make sure that the board knows? Anyone? Nothing left to say.
In fact, water is so new to me, right? And first of all, I want to thank Marion and you guys, the group, for inviting me to participate. Very educational, extremely educational from somebody not knowing anything about this particular utility. So in the meetings, for how it's conducted, first of all, was very brilliant. It was very educationally, like instructors and stuff like that. So, but with the graphics, it made things a lot more conceivable so that I could understand a little better about what this is major. Water is major. And we don't know that from the outside looking in. So I just want to thank you guys for including the community and inviting me. And I think you need to keep doing this in some capacity, that the community really gets to understand the importance of what you do, importance of water, and the importance of community involvement. I don't know if you know, but I got an email from Greg Wallace that this August is National Water Month. Did you know that? So anyhow, happy Water Month.
Thank you, Frank.
So I'm one of the financial people that was bashed by Marion. And I wondered a little bit why I was here. I've been in Desert Hot Springs for about 3 years. And as the weeks went by, I saw a real link to my employment history. I worked for a chemical manufacturer based in San Diego. We were the largest consumer of fresh water, sewer capacity, and natural gas in the county for many years. So I have background and I have a lot of interest in this subject. I think the challenge we will have is probably not having a rate increase for 5 years was not the smartest idea in retrospect. So we have to make up some lost ground. Despite the healthiness of our reserve funds, we gotta make progress. As a group, we were very concerned about the future outlook, and we appreciated the conservatism in the model in terms of not packing it with expected grant monies, et cetera. And we were also very concerned about potential risks, which I heard a lot of you talking about. But it's a big concern, right? We have potential for earthquakes. We could get separated from the power grid, blah, blah, blah. How are we ready? Because water is fundamental. We have to have it to live. So learned a lot.
Thank you.
I wanted to thank you guys for asking me to participate. I have been interested in water and done lots of the Water 101, the CB Water Academy class. And in this adventure, I learned even more about, specifically our district. And so I have a construction background, so I'm definitely field oriented. But what I really loved about their presentation, and I know why we're not doing it right now, but when we had the dashboard graphs, it was plain as, day why we need to raise our rates on both sides. Because and now I understand that the black line needs to be moved up a whole bunch. But even where it was, and I met with Marion and Brian separately to make sure I understood. And believe me, I calculated the different things to check their math. So I did, because it's not that I didn't trust them. I needed to understand that the Excel spreadsheet and stuff works out to 4 decimal places, which I confirmed. So anyway, so even though I don't have a background in the financial realm, it was crystal clear to me that, and especially you'll see if we raise those lines, it gets scary real fast. So it was sort of a gradual, like drop off where we hit, where we went below the line. But we're going to hit it real fast now if we reflect what Arturo was, I guess, saying. So anyway, and just as an added bonus, I have a degree in geology, so I love the water is essential for life. We can live without electricity. It would be very uncomfortable. We can live without electricity. We can live without a lot of other things, but we cannot live without water. So we we have to protect what we have. We have to build on what the people who came before us were so, willing to participate and get the ball started for us. And we need to make sure that that's available for future. So that's my little piece. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Very well said.
I think that's all we have for right now, but if anybody changes their mind, please let us know. Again, I did also just want to mention to the point slides. Thank you, Kurt. So as I mentioned earlier, we are going to continue to discuss this and all of the numbers. And one of the reasons we haven't made a real big deal about the numbers that were presented is that we are still taking your feedback and we still are making adjustments and refinements. We will be bringing this back to you at the study session next week, and we'll be able to go into greater detail on specifically several of the areas that you guys brought up today. We will make sure that we talk about it in greater detail. I've invited all of our Clear Commander members back as well. So at any point in time, if you want to get more feedback from them on something, or if something new information is being shared, we have our community members here ready to also accept that information. We also have our board meeting on the 18th. Then on the 18th, hopefully we'll be at a point where you feel comfortable that we have at least a working path forward, and that will allow us to initiate the Prop 218, the AB 2257 process. That is literally still the beginning of the community engagement and outreach piece of this. We will be sending out a mailer hopefully by the end of the month that would explain the rates and the information, what we legally need to provide, plus a little bit of additional information in that mailer. And then for the months of September and October, we will be doing public meetings. I've asked, I'd like to do at least 4 MSWD sponsored meetings that located different areas throughout the service area. So we'll go up to Mission Lakes Country Club. We'll go out to the Carl May Center. We'll do one at the library. So then we're not asking residents necessarily to come into this room, but we're out and going out into the community and trying to meet them where they are. Then on top of that, we will also go out and offer to all the service organizations like the Rotary, the Women's Club, the Skyborn HOA, and try to go to some of their existing meetings and get some time on their agenda so that we can reach out to their members directly. So I have that is all placeholders. We haven't really pulled the trigger on making all of that happen because I still need board action from you on the 18th to initiate a lot of that. And then lastly, I did want to go back and just talk a little bit about our Help to Others program. As it stands right now, we've got the 9 and 7% increase on the water side for the average customer using 13 units of water. That's about a $3.44 increase per month. If you add in the sewer, if they own their own home and they're paying for their sewer and they're not, they're the owner of they are the owners of the property, blended together, that's just under $6 per month of an increase. Right now, our Help to Others program provides a $100 pledge annually per year for customers who meet the income qualifications. This is what those income qualifications look like. You can see for one person, a single family person in a home, it's $62,650 annually. Let's jump down to more of an average home for people. That looks like $89,550. What I would like to see, and what we have looked at the budget, and we do have this ability to do, we'd like to increase the Help to Others program up to $250 a year annually. That will more than make up the difference if this rate increase does come through. So that way we can offset it. And so those customers who are maybe on a fixed income or they're on the lower economic scale, we can shield them from these increases. And we do have this money available to us. It is not ratepayer money. I do want to make sure that we get that out there. This is not funded through the rates. This is funded through other revenues, specifically our cell phone tower revenues. That's how we get this through the Constitution. We're not allowed to use ratepayer money to fund this. So that's why we have to use those other sources of revenue. Did I miss anything? This is an example. This is what some of the other agencies are currently paying. You'll see Desert Water agencies up at that $200 rate. And so we would be on the higher scale of that. And so that is up for discussion, and that'll be part of our discussion when we come to ask for board action. I would like some board input on where you believe that number needs to be. Anything I need to add to that, Brian?
And are you wanting to discuss that today?
We can, if you'd like. Whichever you'd like.
Just looking at those numbers of eligibility, it has to be a majority of our ratepayers are eligible. I sit on our scholarship committee and for the Rotary Club, and the students, they put in their household income, and they're lucky to be 50-75% of some of these numbers. So I'd like to see us promote this more. I don't know if that funding comes out of that same pocket or if that's in a different pocket, but I'd be a little apprehensive to increase it too much. I'd rather see it go to more people than more to less people. But I do think it needs to come up from 100.
So if you remember, we did right after the COVID, we had the live WAP program, and we did the signups here in this building, and we had people lined up out the door for that program. I have been talking with the city, and we are looking at doing a resources fair, and that is right now slated for October 28th. So that would actually dovetail really well with what we're trying to do with our rates. If we do a sign up, and I've been in contact with the United Way to see if they can't have someone there on site doing on-site signups. There's still a barrier when, we have to tell customers they have to get online, they have to fill out the paperwork. And I think especially for our demographic here in Desert Hot Springs, having that face-to-face, one-on-one contact and actually filling out the paperwork with them and helping them apply goes a long way. And so that is part of my outreach. My planned outreach is that we will continue to do at least one of those resource fairs a year and really kind of help promote that and get more participation, to be honest with you, has been lagging since that day that we did those on site. If you look at the last 2 years, our participation numbers have increased to go down. We're still promoting it. If you look in your bill stuff for every January, we have messages on there. If you look in our social media feeds, you'll see we have messages about the Help to Others program, but we have to find more creative ways to get to our customers and entice them to participate in this program.
When we bring this back for the study session, can you bring the budget of what we make annually from the cell phone towers and what else is earmarked from that fund so that we can look at it at its entirety? Thank you.
And I think that concludes our scripted presentation.
Great. Well, I think I could speak on behalf of the board. A big thank you to all the CLEAR committee, those in the room and those that weren't able to make it, but it means a lot for you to take the time out of your day and share your expertise. So we really appreciate it and hope to continue seeing you at our future meetings. Yeah, anything the board wants to?
I just want to piggyback on that. Thank you, but also encourage you. We want to hear what you don't like too. I loved hearing your appreciation of participating, but I want to hear the things that bothered you, the things that concerned you, the things that you didn't like as much as the things that you do. So I really appreciate the time that you took, and I can't wait to hear more from all of you.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback on what Director Duff said. It's important for us to hear the negative as well as the positive. And I want to kudos not only to the CLEAR committee folks, but our staff for working with the public on these issues and the degree of transparency that presents. And piggybacking on that, I want to congratulate you on this outstanding document here that we've done, our water quality report. I don't know whether you've all seen this on and on. I guess it's mailed to everybody, and I think I got a copy of it in the mail as well. But really good work, staff. I really appreciate it.
So I'd like to thank all of you also. And whatever your reasons are for being here, when you really think about it, you are here representing those citizens in the community within our district that can't make it here. And because of their families or job obligations or whatever. And as a veteran, when people say thank you for your service, sometimes I just want to say, I normally say, well, it was an honor to serve my country, but sometimes I want to say, get involved with government. If you don't, my service to my country really isn't going to be much in the future. And I won't go into details as to why, but I see one gentleman shaking his head yes. So the best way you guys could thank me for my service to my country is by being here today. And I appreciate all of you being here. And I think that most of the veterans who figure they serve their country and just don't want to take any more time, they've done their part. I appreciate you being here also. Thank you.
It's nice to see Frank here. I know Frank, and a lot of people know Frank. And so when you get involved, you start to see sometimes some of the same people over and over. So it's nice to see different people. But I want to kind of speak to something Frank said, which is, you didn't really realize how much is involved in water. Most people think I turn the tap on and it comes out, and you don't think much beyond that. And then once you start to get in there and see, it's quite complicated. Because like you, Frank, when I first came on here, I was like, well, I don't really know much about water. I do now. And it's kind of scary. But I want to thank everyone for taking the time to do this and give us the honest feedback and see some of the challenges that we face on a regular basis, just in terms of just not just operations, but regulations that require us to do certain things that run the costs up. In a perfect world, we would just be able to do what we need to do and that's it, but that's not the case. So thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate all your feedback, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next on the study session. Thank you.
Moving on to general manager comments.
No comments. We touched on a lot of things that I would have normally talked about as part of the CIP program, so appreciate that.
And last but not least, director comments and requests for future agenda items. I think we kind of did that, but any other comments from the board? Director Duff?
Just a little reminder, today was the first day of school in town, and a lot of the parking lots are under construction and aren't necessarily well marked. So please, everybody, be careful if you're watching. Be careful out there. Watch out for the little guys. They are traveling today.
I got nothing.
And I'll just say thank you to staff. Great meeting, great presentation. And then last month I was playing hooky, so thank you to Vice President Griffin for filling in. And with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.